Hello my friends, welcome to part 18 of this RFEFP series, and it's about time we dwelled into one of the biggest known mysteries of our plain world. I'm very excited to bring you the Vokes Day, or the eclipse line of time. Time is the most valuable thing you can spend, so thank you for yours. Please get comfortable and turn your volume up, as this information is not readily available through the normal channels of controlled information. So what is time? Well, physics is the only science, my friends, that explicitly studies time, and even the smartest physicists agree that time is one of the most difficult properties of our universe to understand. However, if you are a geocentric flat Earth believer, it becomes rather apparent to see what has actually been done to confuse and hide the truth about time. Due to the fact that you look directly into where time originates from, the Zetetic way, as a sort of chronologist, bringing you, excitingly, to the earthly eclipses, where 99% of all helio believers seem to think that an eclipse is a proof of a globed Earth and not a flat one. Yet the truth is, it doesn't, because an eclipse happens when one object in the space ether blocks another one from view. That's it. So in the sciences generally, time is defined by its measurement. So it is simply what a clock reads. Yet a large variety of devices have been invented to measure time. The study of these devices is called horology. And no, my friends, it is not a love of horror movies and films. So, if one was to carp tempore, seize the time, the idea to separate the day into smaller parts is credited to the Egyptians 1500 BC because of their sundials calculating exactly where the sun moves around overhead. Knowing this and the position of the shadow marks the hour in local time. We covered the sundial way back in part 1 of this series. Now, the 24-hour day comes from the ancient Egyptians, who divided daytime into 10 hours. Therefore, they measured with shadow clocks and sundials, added a twilight hour at the beginning and another at the end of the daytime. Nighttime was divided into 12 hours, based on the observations of the stars, the star transit cycles around a fixed, motionless Earth. The division of the hour into 60 minutes and of the minute into 60 seconds comes from the Babylonians, who used a sexagesimal system for mathematics and astronomy, which is counting in 60s. They derived their number system from the Sumerians, who were using it as early as 3500 BC, and thus the first self-winding mechanism was invented in 1770. Now, Christian Huygens was a Dutch physicist, a mathematician, an astronomer and an inventor who is widely regarded as one of the greatest scientists of all time and a major figure in the scientific revolution because of his invention of the pendulum clock in 1656 was a breakthrough in timekeeping and became the most accurate timekeeper for almost 300 years because he was the first to use a mathematical formulae to describe the laws of physics. Observable, testable, repeatable. He also studied in much detail the Saros cycles of the lunar and the solar eclipses of our Earth. Now, the astro clock, first installed in 1410, and the oldest one still operating today, and the most accurate time clock we have on our plain Earth. And the fact here, folks, is that sensationally, it is based and calculated for a flat, motionless, geocentric Earth and not a heliocentric one. It's all there on the clock itself, as accurate as your birthday once a year, even the leap years. I wish more people realised when you study the astro clock in detail, the answers are all there for you to ponder upon. This amazing clock, my friends, still amazes people today with its precision of the apostles and the moving statues, and of course, its accurate visualization of time, like no other instrument on this plain Earth. So when one is looking into the eclipses of our past history, to all the ones believing in the heliocentric theory, it is very important regarding geo-Earth science that you must be aware that time zones were only formally defined recently. For example, the USA only passed the Standard Time Act in 1918, so 100 years ago. So when a so-called time is listed in a given time zone, that specific time zone might not have actually been in use in a given place at that point in history, so causes problems and confusion because it's all been changed. For dates up to 1923, there's another wrinkle. Different calendars were used in different countries. And this began when a huge change was made to our calendars, from the Julian to the Gregorian calendars, 1582. When the new Gregorian calendar was introduced to the Earth, the day number suddenly jumped forwards by 10 days. So on this site, all eclipse dates up to October the 4th, 1582 are all in the Julian or the old style calendar. And all dates from October the 15th, 1582 are shown in the Gregorian or the new style calendar. Thus again causes a problem. And unfortunately, the calendar change was implemented at different times and in different places. And as far late as 1923 in some countries. So for 340 years, there was a transition period in which both old style and new style calendars were in use in different countries. Thus creates problems. Because where an event like an eclipse is seen much over the plain Earth, this may be dated according to the Julian calendars in some countries, and thus recorded in Gregorian calendars in others. So the creme de la creme, the actual eclipse line of time, the Saros cycles in series, my friends. let's take a crack at it. A total solar eclipse of the sun takes place every 18 years and 10 or 11 days, therefore moves through the year by being 10 or 11 days later each occurrence, and in the course of 651 solar years completes its total cycle, starting again, taking place on the same date like your birthday once a year. This forms a period of time called a solar cycle, to which all history must bow down to. There are only two types of eclipses we see on plain Earth: solar and lunar eclipses. Each have different categories of eclipses. Solar has partial, annular, total and hybrid, and lunar only has two categories, total and partial. We also have the star transit cycles, but we can get into that one on another upload. So the solar and lunar eclipses have their own individual cycles that they perform daily, weekly, monthly and yearly, 70 occurring every 18 years. So in a total solar cycle of 651 years, there is 2,473.8 eclipses that will occur on our plain Earth. So by this enumeration of the eclipses, they constitute astronomical, total, accurate measurements to which not a word of falsehood can be uttered. We have a literal eclipse line of time, as any single decent chronologist can solve the Volksday, if they only look close enough. Now the grand discovery here, my friends, had to be first be made by resolving the days into natural solar cycles, which occur and which have occurred around the plain Earth, which is really the scientific determination for time. Not Einstein's special relativity theory. They determined just how to measure the timeline with not only the solar cycles, but with the lunar cycles. Because all scripture history, my friends, is all calculated from lunar cycles. All of it. So we have a literal, written, astronomical line of time which cannot be altered by a single day, thus taking us all the way back to week 1 and the first solar cycle, which had been obtained from the antediluvian days, taking us to week 1. And of course, the first Sabbath on the 7th of the first month, as we have the 7 literal days in the week. We have 70 eclipses in every 18 years. This is a lunar cycle, repeating themselves in exactly the same manner as do the days in the week, and as predictable as your birthday every year. Imagine a time loop where all eclipses, solar and lunar, all go back to the same starting place and repeat the same cycles over and over. This fact, my friends, carries every single eclipse through the course of a solar cycle, which is 651 years. 3.8 eclipses a year. So 2,473.8 eclipses to total reset. When the extra 10 or 11 days are added, they carry each of them to the end of the year and they start again in January. In this way, every single eclipse tells us all our past times. They let us form the correct history, and it is only a matter or a question of arithmetic to work out all eclipses all date back to the creation year. A total solar eclipse had happened on 559 AD, precisely written by Moses, and then on 1210 AD, 651 years later, and then in 1861, a very significant date in history. And thus, my friends, the next total solar eclipse will be due in the year 2512. Let's see if that's right. Well, to be exact, my friends, the next total solar eclipse of the sun will happen on July the 14th, which is a Thursday, 2512. No matter what you read about lunar and solar eclipses on any contemporary controlled website these days from the space agencies, even about when the next NASA eclipse is due and when and what exoplanet we're able to watch it from if we were on it. But at least NASA's website, my friends, at least they conform to the 3.8 eclipses that happen every year. Yet most of this information about the eclipse line of time is not available anywhere in the controlled information system that we have. Now, nevertheless, in ancient times, peoples believed that an eclipse was a bad omen, a sign of gloom and doom. However, those who had knowledge of the eclipse schedule and who could predict it were very, very powerful people. So if the viewer knows the date of one solar eclipse, it is possible to predict others. And as we now know, an eclipse period lasts 6,583 days, which is a little over 18 years. And so after this period, an identical eclipse series will occur. Possessing this knowledge, a person could appear to have the power to control the events of playing out in the heavens, to actually conquer chaos itself. But all of the ancient peoples and civilizations of the plane had already discovered the difference of local time and the hour of the day between places at different longitudes 600 years before Christ. Because they knew the causes and the laws regarding eclipses and the overhead motion of the sun and the moon and the stars circulating precisely around a fixed flat earth with total accuracy, timekeeping at its very best. Even the Chaldeans gave Alex the Great tables of eclipses for the next 1,993 years to come, using the very special Saros cycles. And even the fascinating history of the Chinese peoples here, my friends, have been able to predict precisely every ecliptic cycle on the plain Earth for many, many millennia, past and present, using the eclipse line of time. So even Ptolemy also used the Saros cycles in series. And thus in 1504, Christopher Columbus used the information to his advantage when his ship ran around off Jamaica. The local people fed him and his crew for months and months while the Spaniards tried to repair the ship. But after a while, the locals grew tired of giving and giving and giving. So Columbus actually threatened to take the moon away if the locals did not keep feeding his crew. So when the eclipse actually occurred, the natives were astounded and of course fed the man, who was apparently able to control the light of the moon. He had the knowledge before he kidnapped them, obviously. But they're still used today for very, very good reasons, as it is time personified. 400 or so years ago, in 1609, was the invention of the telescope to the Earth, which changed everything we see and what we know forever, for good and obviously for the very bad. Our technology and timepieces have certainly, no mistakenly, gotten a lot better within the last 400 years, of course. However, the eclipse line of time can never be changed, not like our history or our minds, or the online information that we peruse through every single day. The eclipse line of time can never be changed. It can only be figured out if you want to. The truth is the truth, no matter what we think it is. This is why it's called the truth. Where time originates from, really. The sun moving around a fixed, motionless Earth. Overhead, put into the right 12 hours of daylight and 12 hours of twilight, no matter where we are on the plain Earth. Longitude and latitude, definitely and certainly. Not from a ridiculous 93 or whatever million miles away, being a million times bigger than a tiny bald paired spinning Earth. That is very much a theory. Whenever it's the best of times, or it's the worst of times, this is the only time that we have. And I just want to thank you for yours. A so-called SAR, if you will, which is one half of a Saros. It's you on the other side of the screen, or your phone, that makes the other half. Stay safe and look after yourself on our plain Earth. Love and look to you. Vox Populi.